"Can I have the rest of your food, mister?" whispered a little girl, tiny and frail. It was an ordinary night for this tech mogul, a quiet meal until a little girl in a tattered dress approached, not asking for money, but for his leftovers. When he handed her his plate, she didn't eat, she ran. When he followed her down the dark alley, what he saw was something that would shatter his understanding of his own reality and his past, something he had long forgotten or chose to forget. Who were these girls, and why did they feel familiar? Find out in today's story, and please let us know where you're tuning in from. Nathan Prescott, a 52-year-old tech mogul with a net worth in the billions, sat alone in the Marbled Vine, one of the most luxurious restaurants in downtown Seattle. The lighting was dim, the air rich with the aroma of truffle oil and aged wine. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. His company's stock had doubled, and he had just surpassed every financial milestone he'd ever dreamed of. But as he swirled his glass of Merlot, a flicker of movement outside the window caught his eye. A girl, no older than 5, stood alone on the sidewalk, her tiny frame engulfed in a faded yellow dress. Her eyes locked onto his plate of lobster and roasted vegetables with a hunger that went far beyond food. She stepped forward. "Can I have the rest of your food, mister?" she whispered. Nathan hesitated. He had grown numb to scenes like this, children on the streets hollow-eyed and hungry, passing shadows in a world of luxury he had come to take for granted. He was used to brushing off street beggars with practiced indifference. But something in this little girl's eyes, a mixture of raw desperation and something hauntingly familiar, froze him in place. In that fleeting moment, Nathan saw not just a child, but a mirror to his forgotten past. Instead of calling security, he pushed the plate toward the girl. "Take it," he said, his voice stiff. To his surprise, the girl didn't eat a single bite. Instead, she carefully slid the food into a crumpled plastic bag, gave him a soft thank you, and ran. Nathan couldn't let it go. He threw a few bills on the table and left the restaurant, following the girl as she disappeared into the cold night. His Italian shoes clicked sharply against the pavement, his heart pounding, not from fear but from something deeper. He followed her through twisting side streets until she vanished into Elmwood Alley, a forgotten corner of the city that reeked of rot and rain. Then he saw her again. She was kneeling beside a smaller child, just a baby really, curled into herself and barely moving. Her small body trembled with every breath, too weak to lift her head, too fragile to cry. The baby's lips were cracked, dry from dehydration, and her skin was flushed with a deep fever. "I brought food, Sophie," the older girl, Lila, whispered, brushing back her sister's damp curls. "Just like Grandma said." Nathan's knees buckled, and the shock of what he was witnessing hit him like a tidal wave. He crouched beside them, his heart in his throat. This wasn't a random act of hunger. This was survival in its most raw, unfiltered form. This was a truth so staggering, it shattered the illusion he had built around his comfortable existence. As the ambulance sirens approached in the distance, Nathan noticed something in Lila's hand. A small locket. She held it like a lifeline. "Who's in the picture?" he asked gently. "My grandma," she replied. "She told us stories. She said we'd be okay. She promised." Nathan reached for the locket, his fingers trembling. When he saw the photo inside, his breath hitched. It was Ruth Monroe, the woman who had taken him in when he was a homeless teenager. The woman who had believed in him before he had a dollar to his name, who gave him warmth when the world had turned its back. She wasn't just a caretaker. She had been his saving grace, his lifeline in the darkest chapter of his life. The realization hit with the force of a tidal wave. These were her granddaughters, and he had failed her. Failed to answer her letters. Failed to return her calls. Failed to check in when her name surfaced in the back of his mind. Now her legacy sat in front of him, starving, abandoned, and nearly lost. The weight of his silence echoed louder than any apology ever could. At St. Grace Children's Hospital, doctors worked through the night to stabilize Sophie. Malnutrition, fever, neglect. The diagnosis was grim, one that revealed just how long Sophie had been fighting for her life without anyone noticing. Her tiny frame bore the evidence of months of deprivation, brittle bones, sunken eyes, and a frailty that chilled even the most seasoned doctors. Nathan didn't leave their side. He made phone calls, brought in the best pediatricians, hired trauma specialists. But more than that, he sat with Lila every day, listening to her stories, helping her believe in adults again. And slowly, Sophie began to recover. Then came the next storm, a phone call from a rehab clinic. Lila and Sophie's father, Marcus Monroe, was alive. He had checked into treatment weeks ago after an overdose. Now he wanted to see his daughters. Nathan's stomach turned. Could he trust the man who had let these girls starve? He sat down with Lila. "Your dad wants to see you. Do you think he's changed?" she asked. "I think he's trying," Nathan said. "But the choice is yours." At the clinic, Marcus Monroe looked like a shadow of the man he once was. Thin, worn, but sober. When he saw his daughters, tears streamed down his face. "I know I failed you," he whispered, his voice shaking with guilt and hope. "But I want to try again. I want to be someone you can trust." Sophie didn't wait. She sprinted into his arms with a sob, her tiny hands wrapping tightly around his waist. Marcus held her close, tears falling freely as he kissed the top of her head. Lila, however, stood still, her hands clenched by her sides. The memories of hunger, fear, and unanswered questions built a wall around her heart that wasn't so easy to tear down. But she slowly, cautiously, she stepped forward. Her voice, though soft, carried the weight of everything she had endured. "You have to promise. No more disappearing, no more lies. If you come back, you stay. You don't get to leave again." Marcus nodded solemnly. "I promise. I'm not running anymore. I swear it." Nathan watched from a few feet away, his chest tight, emotion rising like a tide. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale. But it was something more honest. It was a beginning. And beginnings, he knew, were powerful things. Weeks passed. Nathan had taken a leave from his company. No, everything was slowly falling into place, into routine. He opened his home to the girls and helped their father recover and rebuild his family, now also his family. His mansion no longer felt empty. It echoed with the sound of giggles, crayons on hardwood, and bedtime stories. Lila and Sophie weren't just two girls he helped. They had become his family. Every time Lila showed him a new drawing, or Sophie asked for a bedtime hug, Nathan remembered the locket, remembered Ruth, remembered who he used to be, a scared, lost boy with no direction and no future until a woman named Ruth gave him hope. He recalled the warmth of her tiny kitchen, the quiet reassurance of her bedtime stories, and the way she looked at him like he mattered when no one else did, and who he had become again, not just a man of wealth and influence, but someone who now understood the priceless value of compassion, of stepping in when it counts. The cycle had come full circle, and in giving these girls a chance, he had reclaimed the part of himself he had buried under decades of ambition and success. He remembered to never forget where he came from, and where he wouldn't be for Ruth and her kindness. Success had blurred his vision of what mattered, and now he saw it clearly. One evening, Nathan stood in his study, looking out at the Seattle skyline. He thought of all he had built, but for the first time, he realized that true success wasn't in stock tickers or luxury dinners. It was in second chances, in love, in showing up when it mattered most. He smiled and whispered into the night, "Thank you, Ruth. I'm finally making it right." Nathan meeting the girl and following her was fate. If he had not followed her, do you think he would have realized that it was compassion that had led Ruth to give him the life that he had? What would you have done in Nathan's place? Kept walking or followed the girl? Please let us know in the comments below, and thank you for listening to Storyline Narratives.